Good morning. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. Adapting and innovating in a volatile world. Every couple of years, communities who are involved in fragility, conflict, and violence get together online and at the World Bank headquarters. It is a very special moment for people who care about these particular issues. My name is Femi Oke. I am the opening plenary moderator. It's been a while since we've all sat together, either hybrid or in the same room, and we have a comfort level that allows us to turn to our neighbour, shake their hands and say, "Good morning, nice to see you." I know you've already done that online. It is good to have you online as well around the world for the Fragility Forum. There will be moments, Forum, when you will want to break into spontaneous applause because we're talking about innovation, we're talking about lessons learned, resilience, and what we can do in our community going forward. I suggest that a moment of spontaneous applause is about to happen. I don't know, but I feel it will when I tell you how we're about to start. Oh. You surprised me and I was expecting it. All right. The Director of Fragility, Conflict and Violence at the World Bank is Sukaina Khan, and she is the only way that we can start our Fragility Forum 2024. Director.
Good morning, and it's my pleasure, before getting into the first session, to welcome all of you joining here today. We have 5,000 people registered online and in person for the next 3 days, over 60 sessions. So before I get into the first session, I just want us to remind all of us, we are meeting at a difficult geopolitical time. Conflict and crisis are becoming the new normal in too many parts of the world. Not only conflicts that are making the headlines, but those that are not making breaking news. The number of conflict events around the world has risen, with a high death toll and with forced displacement. We have almost 110 million people forcibly displaced. The climate crisis, the global shock of the pandemic, and threat of future pandemics, and complicate the landscape and make things more challenging for all of us. We will have an opportunity during the forum to dig more into the data, but we should not lose sight of the devastating human suffering. All of us have made important efforts to address these challenges and support people and countries affected by FCV. The World Bank Group has increased financing substantially, enhanced support to client countries striving to prevent conflict and transition out of FCV, made significant strides in gender-focused programming, and helped clients affected by forced displacement and other transition spillover of FCV. We are increasingly remaining engaged to protect lives and development gains, even in the most challenging situation. But the World Bank Group and all of us here have much more to learn, much more to do, and much more to challenge ourselves and the status quo to improve impact in all fragile countries, poor and middle income. But despite the FCV bleak landscape, I am looking forward to meaningful discussions with key stakeholders and hearing about the many bright spots of innovation that deserve to be part of our collective narrative on FCV. I am looking forward to featuring artists, authors, athletes who are affecting change in communities affected by FCV. This forum is an opportunity for all of us to foster collaboration for greater impact on the ground and to chart a new path forward for countries experiencing FCV challenge. With that, let me hand over to Femi, our moderator for the first discussion. Thank you for your attention.
You may have found on your chair an interpretation device. That interpretation device will bring you French, English, Spanish, and Arabic. This language I am speaking is South London. There is no button for that. I apologize in advance. If you are watching online, I salute you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. If you're watching on C Event or World Bank Live, you also have interpretation in French, English, Spanish, and Arabic, so you can do that. As I'm talking and introducing your plenary, I love that the plenary speakers are so keen to get started, they're taking a chair. So, who am I saying hello to? Magda Diop, Managing Director of the IFC. Good morning. Nice to see you. Duška Jurčić, he's Deputy Minister of Human Rights and Refugees, Bosnia and Herzegovina. Welcome. His Excellency Cissé Masra, Prime Minister of Chad. Bonjour, welcome. And Anna Bearday, Managing Director of Operations at the World Bank. You have to clap her. So plenary, I love that you're here because you are courageous, because this opening plenary, called the opening plenary for simplicity, has to be the best conversation of the whole of the Fragility Forum. We've got to set the standard up here, lively, engaging, innovative dialogue. Okay, we've got to hit the main themes, which are lessons learned, resilience, middle-income countries, the private sector, and be interesting and engaging at the same time. No pressure. I know we can do it. But first of all, Anna, and then Prime Minister and Duška, and then also Magda, what I'm really interested in, just very briefly, is why are you here?
Femi, thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. Let me put it just in a nutshell of why I'm here. I am here because the majority of the poor live in fragile and conflict-affected places. And by 2030, 60% of extreme poor will be in FCV countries. And if we don't work in FCV countries, we will fail in our mission to end poverty on a livable planet.
Prime Minister Masra, you are here because why?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm here, I come from Chad, which is the cradle of humanity. I think the oldest man discovered in the world comes from Chad. And I'm here because my hope is that in the coming years, we will make sure that we don't stuck at fragility, but we move from fragility to humanity, so that next year, the coming years, I will leave this place for someone else. This is my hope. This is why I'm here.
Duška.
Well, the staff of World Bank in Bosnia and Herzegovina was looking forward this time to find a one-woman politician who would come to the Fragility Forum. So that was how I was picked up. So as you could see, Anna, Prime Minister, Director, all of them are economists. Femi and I have two things which are united, which are very, very similar. She was telling to us 3 times you need to do this, you need to answer the questions, you need to be prepared to tell the story, etc. So 3 times, no pressure. I also do have a journalistic background, and I know what she's looking for to be the best. She's very, very ambitious. But on the other hand, the difference which I mentioned with the other speakers and myself, I'm a lawyer, I'm Deputy Minister for Human Rights. This is my first political experience, but I'm gonna talk about some other challenges, and that is how to be human rights fighter.
Magda.
No, I'm here because we're living in troubled waters. We've never seen a time where there are so many people dying from conflict everywhere in the world, in Europe, in Africa, in other parts of the world. So the situation is very dire, and we are really in troubled waters right now. And I think we need to build a bridge to cross those. And for people of my generation knew a song which was Bridge Over Troubled Waters. And I think that I'm here because we need to build that bridge so people can cross this river, which is very troubled right now.
Such a simple question, but so many deep answers to why would you even be here in DC this particular week. And I want to dig a little bit deeper into World Bank priorities. Climate change, climate issues, climate crisis, obviously one of them. Another one that is very much a focus of the World Bank is fragility, conflict, violence. It is a priority. How does that change the way the World Bank deals with countries affected by fragility, conflict, violence?
Thank you so very much, Femi. And let me maybe just take this opportunity to welcome everybody to the Fragility Forum. It's really exciting that we're together 2024. As you know, this event takes place every 2 years. 2 years ago, we were not able to do this in person. We're so excited to be here in person. I think we have something like 4,000 people joining in person or online, and I think this is a huge testament to the importance of this topic, interest, commitment, energy to work on this. I want to just thank you all. I want to thank you, Femi, for being with us, and I want to thank all the fellow panelists for being with us. I will come to your question. Before I do that, I also wanted to, as we get started with our day, if you allow me, just take a moment to acknowledge all the people who have lost lives and lost loved ones because of tragedies, conflict, and war. There are too many of them. They're all over the world. So if you join me just in a few moments of acknowledging and paying our respects. Thank you for doing that. Now, let me turn to your question. So as the fellow panelists have said, we want to go really from a world where we are living with fragility and conflict, where a world where we can focus on humanity, where we can make sure that we can turn to the next page. But it's very difficult, and you mentioned some of these intertwined risks. If you look at the list of the most fragile and conflict-affected countries, it actually overlaps with countries most vulnerable to climate change. If you look at water scarcity, food insecurity, there's an overlap. So we need to address these issues in a different manner. So how is the World Bank doing this, and what do we need to do more? I want to focus on 5 things, and I really want to leave you with these 5 aspects. First and foremost, incredibly important, and to me, one of the most fundamental pillars of our strategy is we have to remain engaged. When trouble comes, we cannot leave. We have to remain engaged. And we do that from countries like Yemen, Afghanistan, Somalia, Ukraine, Palestine. We do it across the board, and we have to. And we do it thanks to partners. And I want to thank all of you who are partners with us. Take Yemen, for example. It's a good example where, thanks to UNICEF and the ICRC, we've been able to remain engaged and have been able to do operations over a long period of time, even though the country's been going through such a difficult time. Number one, remain engaged. The second thing is that we need to recognize that conflicts do not recognize borders. Do not recognize borders, which means that we need to make sure that we also work very hard in the country where the conflict is, but equally neighboring countries that are feeling it. I saw this firsthand when I was in Chad in September, and I traveled with UNHCR to the border of Sudan and Chad, where so many refugees are coming in over the border. And what I found very, very powerful is that you can take humanitarian and development support and assistance and you can twin it. Because what we need to do is help the people who are coming over in a desperate situation, but also, of course, the host communities. And between UNHCR and the World Bank and many other partners, I feel like we can do that, and we can in many ways make sure that everyone gets better off. And from a development point of view, it's important to me because we can leave something behind. I think that's important. So we're doing this and we're doing it pretty well, I think. Now, what do we need to do more of? I'm gonna focus on three things. First one is part of our strategy that I find difficult. I'm going to be very honest with you. It's our first pillar. It's called prevention. We are not preventing conflict. Look, the world, Maktar said it very well. The world is strife now with conflicts and fragility. So how do we get better as an institution to analyze, detect, identify fragility? Can we prevent the conflict breaking out? Not necessarily. Can we be better prepared to know what the drivers are, to increase our support in areas that need increase for resilience? I think yes. So we're working now to look at various monitoring and preventive predictability tools, learning from others. And here I want to give a shout out also to the International Rescue Committee, which has a tool that I just discussed a few days ago with them. So we need to learn from each other. We need to get better at doing this so that we can also invest where we think the fragility is the highest. My fourth point is, and this is something a minister told me early on when I was in this job, we have to stop treating a crisis like a crisis, because now they are every day, everywhere, whether it is climate change, natural disasters, or conflict, which means our clients need to have resources at their disposal, not 2 months later, 5 months later, at their disposal. For this reason, we have introduced something called the Crisis Response Toolkit. And what this does is actually allow our clients to move 10% of undispersed balances in their program with us immediately, so that they can use those resources to respond to the crisis, the conflict right away. And my fifth point is something that is particularly important this year, and that is that we mobilize a very strong IDA, International Development Association. This is our fund for the poorest countries in the world. A huge amount of it goes towards fragile and conflict-affected countries, and we need it to continue. So this is a shout out to all of you who follow the fundraising and the importance and the result stories coming out of IDA to spread the word, because this is an incredibly important source of resources for our clients. Thank you.
So, Anna, when you started speaking, Maktar got out his notebook and started making notes. I don't know how he was inspired that quickly, but I do want to know what he wrote down. No, we want to know what he wrote down. Maktar, what did you write down in your notebook, please?
I am a nightmare for my team because I prepare briefings and I never use them. I just read them, but I never go verbatim. So my colleagues here are just sometimes frustrated. So I try to respond to the question. So obviously I use what they told me, but I try to make it my own. So that's what I was trying to do. But before we start, I would like to give a shout to Sukaina and the FCV team. Please stand up for the wonderful job. I really do believe that this setting is unique and excellent, gathering people from various parts of the world. So thank you for doing that. Now, I was reacting to say, because I think that what Anna said is very, very important. As we are in a world today where we have conflicts which are not the same type of conflict first. We have had, unfortunately, an heterogeneity is the nature of conflict. the conflict in Ukraine, the conflict in the Sahel, the conflict in other parts of the world are very different. So they require a much more refined analysis of the root causes and understanding of what needs to be done. So that's the first point. Because I think that we move from a place where conflict will tend to be localized in the same type of geographies, in the same type of countries, and the tools that were prepared and developed were responding to that reality. Today, we have a much more diverse reality, so it requires much more. So that's the first point. The second point is that there is a huge contagion effect on conflict, not only on spreading the conflict, but on the perception of the risk. When I used to say when I was leading Africa region at the World Bank, that when there is a conflict in the Horn of Africa, people talk about Guinea. And I tell them, Guinea is closer to Paris than it is to the whole of Africa. But the perception of the market, the perception of people was Africa is a whole, so when there is a conflict somewhere in Africa, Africa is bad. Third, when there is a conflict, FDIs leave quickly. Foreign direct investment leave. So in this situation, for us, it's even more important to work with the local private sector, so local investors, because there are those who are resilient. There are those who will be staying where there is a conflict, and there are those who will be able to attract more investment. So shifting with a very strong and determined and clear focus on domestic private sector is important. To do that, we need to be with them on the long run, not to give them loan and leave. We need to put money in their company, to take equity, so that they know that we are with them on the longer run. And Anna made a very strong point on IDA. IDA should be used to de-risk that, so that people can put their money in it. So a second lesson is we need to be there on the long run. Why I'm saying that? I saw it on my own eyes. My team and I prepared the re-engagement of the World Bank to Somalia in 2002. I was Vice President for Africa region from 2012 to 2018. We have 12 round tables to address the debt issue on Somalia. We are just now starting to find a solution. It takes time. It takes resilience. We need to be there. I was also at that same time covering Kenya. I saw the first generation of refugees in Kakamega camp. I saw how the people grow without ID. I saw how the children needed services. But also I saw how the countries, the host country, were not recognized enough for the efforts that they were making. So third lesson, we need to recognize more the effort. And I'm happy that the refugee windows have been put in that sense. The fourth point, and I will stop here because I know, is we need to have investment which are helping to reduce the probability of an event, but also which are addressing these issues. A lot of them are about service, financial service, social services, and others. So we need to invest in those and bring the private sector to be able to multiply, catalyze in their effort, and be able to have investment which are conflict resilient. When you invest in agriculture, even if there is a coup in a country, people will not stop the agricultural project. If you invest in water, even if there is a coup, people will not stop those projects. So we need to start learning from those lessons.
Prime Minister Masra, you are nodding. I want you to articulate that nod. What are you thinking?
Oh, thank you so much. Let me take the example of my country, Chad. This is a country, I'm not going to go into the details of the indicators. We are at the bottom. But we have to face a new situation, which is the situation of the refugees coming from the neighboring countries, which basically is an exogenous kind of impact for our country. When we have $1 today, we have to divide this $1, 25% for immediate needs of the population, maybe 25% for security, 25% for the refugee and the humanitarian problem, and the rest for other like climate, etc. issues. which means that compared to the existing or the initial situation, there is a new situation on which the government of Chad or the population of Chad don't really have a kind of a direct impact. So the question is, how can we, and I'm happy to hear Maktar referring to the roots of the problem. And in my sense, we should focus on the roots instead of focusing on the consequences, actually, of the fragilities. And on the roots, I think the main thing we need to focus on is the question of the leadership in place in those different countries. When I look at the situation in Chad, we have the existing number of refugees 10 years back. And now, 10 years later, we have a new number adding to the initial situation. In 10 years' time, we didn't change much the situation, which means that this looks like a global failure for all of us. So we need to focus on the leadership, the existing leadership, the institutions in place, the policies we are designing. How are they really inclusive? How are they making sure that we build strong countries, strong institutions? I think this is one of maybe the next steps we need to make sure that we can solve those problems in a sustainable kind of manner. This is number one. The second thing, I would like to add the question of the skills. While we are trying to solve the immediate situations of emergency, food emergency, humanitarian emergency, etc., how are we also preparing the population in terms of skills for the next generation? And this is where our investments on specific needs like education, health, and others are strategic, even if we are facing a situation of emergency. And this is why for Chad, for example, we decided to design, within this problem, we decided to design a program named, it's like, and in those different countries, fragile countries, like 70 to 80% of the population is rural area population. So unless we solve the problems of those rural area populations, we are not really solving the problem of the vast majority. So we decided during this transitional period to design a one village, one development package program. And within this program, for each village, we have around 20,000 villages. We don't have access to education, to health system, to local industry for local transformation, access to electricity, to clean water facility. So these become very basic needs. We need to solve those problems too. So we designed what we call the one village, one school, one village, one health center, one village, one clean water facility. And this, I think it becomes a shift for the vast majority of those population. And by doing so, we are also preparing the next generation and laying the foundation to make sure that the same fragility 10 years or 15 years later, we don't remain in the same situation. Thank you so much.
Dushka, you are thinking something. I want you to articulate it, and then I want you to take us on this path from being a conflict country to getting to peace, and how that happens. What does the international community do from your experience in Bosnia and Herzegovina? But first of all, I know there's something else that's going on in your mind that I think was just triggered by the Prime Minister. Go ahead.
The war ended in 1995, and I must say something, maybe it's not appropriate, and I apologize because of that. There was some misunderstanding between me and Femi. She told me that I should say the anecdote, and on my language it means the joke. So, but I'm definitely gonna say what was happening the first day after the peace accord was signed, and that happened on November 21st, 1995. Since I was a journalist, I met American journalist afterwards, and he said, congratulations, but I do have a joke to tell you. And I was asking what? So just to give a little bit of history, so there were 3 presidents who signed a peace accord. One Serbian president, Slobodan Milošević, another one Croatian, that was Franjo Tuđman, and behalf of Bosnia and Herzegovina, that was Alija Izetbegović. So that journalist was telling to me, so all of them came to God, so old joke, but varieties. And the first one, the Serbian president, said to God, I would like to have great Serbia, including, of course, the pieces of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And God said, yes, I'm going to fulfill your wish in 100 years. Then Serbian president started to cry, and God asked him, why are you crying? He said, I'm not going to be alive by that time. Then Croatian president came, and God asked him, what is your wish? And he said, I would like to have great Croatia, including Bosnia and Herzegovina, of course. And God said, okay, well, you are going to have it in 50 years. And Croatian president started to cry, saying, I'm not going to be alive by that time. Then the Bosnian president, Alija Izetbegović, came, and he said, well, I would like to have united Bosnia and Herzegovina. Then God started to cry. So, to be honest, that was a really bitter joke. For somebody who spent the whole war, I'm born Sarajevan, I'm born Bosnian, so I was there all the time under the siege, etc. So, but I'm glad that you laughed. So I very much support what Anna is saying, that international community should stay involved. And unfortunately, in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, it didn't happen in 1992 when the war started. And when there were a number of war atrocities, which we are seeing now in Gaza and in Palestine. But however, it got involved in 1995. And 60,000 international troops were deployed to Bosnia and Herzegovina to maintain the peace and to achieve freedom of movement of the people and freedom of movement of goods. The estimate said that international community donated to Bosnia and Herzegovina around $20 billion. Out of it, World Bank facilitated 2.3 billion to water supply, to electricity facilities, to improvement of job opportunities, etc. Around 120 projects. So talking about the engagement of international community, I also need to say that we do have something, let's say, very, very special that has been agreed in Dayton Accord, and that is called Office of the High Representative. That person still, that office still exists in Bosnia and Herzegovina almost 30 years after the war, and his assignment, or her assignment, we didn't have any women, but we did have men, is to oversee civilian implementation of Dayton Accord. So that is a presence of international community. And since I was talking about atrocities and I was talking about human rights, I need to stress out that there was also International Crime Tribunal for former Yugoslavia established in 1994. And its role was crucial because it really brought a bit of justice to victims. So that is also important. But on the other hand, having in mind such a, let's say, enormous role of international community in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which could be maybe the recipe for some other countries. But on the other hand, I cannot agree more than with you, Prime Minister, saying that how important it is to build and to strengthen state institutions. According to our peace accord, this part is constitution, Bosnia and Herzegovina consists of 2 entities, 3 constitutional people, 1 district, 10 cantons, and it is very, very complex. And the only way to deal with that is to strengthen state institutions, to make them more powerful. The danger, the threat, the main obstacle for Bosnia and Herzegovina, still 30 years after the war, is the fact that we do have the threats of cessation of the part of the territory. And although so many years passed, that's why this combination of doing two, having engagement of international community and having a strong state institutions are necessary. And unfortunately, Bosnia, I would say that it is still a fragile society and state, and I would give you only one example. So around 2 million people left Bosnia and Herzegovina during the war. But according to our census from 2013, there were 3.5 million inhabitants in Bosnia and Herzegovina. As we speak now, 10 years after, so that was a peacetime, we do have only 2.4 million, which means that 1.1 million people left Bosnia and Herzegovina. What happened? Yes, we do have water supply. Water is not anymore the problem. We don't have electricity problem. Yes, we do health care, almost in every village. Yes, we do have the schools. There is a lack of job opportunities, but for resilience, it is necessary to have both political stability and not only economic growth, but also economic development.
Dushka, I'm so glad you mentioned resilience. I'm so glad you mentioned resilience because I want us all to talk about that from our various different expertise and experience. Anna, resilience in this world of fragility, conflict, violence. What does that even mean?
Oh, thank you, and very, I think, powerful interventions by the panelists. I think if there's one thing, and I was asked this question actually a few days ago when I visited an Institute of Technology with students, recognizing that the world is increasingly fragile. I think it is institutions. I think it is institutions, and I think that's why in our work it becomes so important that we do not just focus on services, we focus on the institutions behind the services and making sure that the capacity is built. Because when things go wrong, when things get difficult and hard, it's those institutions that need to actually step up even more. But I would also go further and say something you were getting to also, Dushka, which is rule of law and enforcement of law, because it's very easy that things can trickle out of control, and then you have a whole different issue at your hands. So I would say that this is an area that we should do more on, and we haven't talked that much yet, and I know you will, about another part of our strategy, which is the violence part. We talk a lot about the conflict part, but some countries around the world where the biggest fragility is actually domestic violence. It's not necessarily cross-border conflicts or within civil war, but it's violence, it's gangs, it's other types of violence that threaten society and citizens. So I would say it's around that. I would also say that we need to take a segmentation approach, which means what does building resilience mean for different people? If you are a 14-year-old girl, what does resilience mean for you? It means being able to go to school and finish your school. It means being able to get safely to that school. And it means coming home from school where you have also safety, you have electricity, you can do your homework, and you have your family fabric. But if you're a 45-year-old farmer, what does resilience mean to you? It means your family, of course, which might mean that 14-year-old girl, but it also means, will the rain come this year as I expect it to? Will I be able to have a yield on my farming and my crops? Will I be able to make a livelihood? what does this mean for me? So understanding resilience from different eyes and the eye of the beholder, I think, is very important for our work.
Prime Minister, we met just over an hour ago, and I said to you, I would really love you to share a story that will stay with our forum for the days to come. So if we're focusing on resilience and Chad, what story would you want to share with us?
Can I share 2 stories?
2 short stories.
Thank you so much. Look, let me take a personal kind of story. I started my school in my village like 30 years back. And I had the opportunity to go to school because my grandmom has to sell in the market the rest of the, you know, the food, etc. And I got that opportunity to go to school. And then I left my village and I traveled and I went to different countries and then I came back. 30 years later, and the school remained the same. And at that time, we had the opportunity, thanks to the World Bank, to finance the production of our oil 20 years back. But in that village, which is in the region of the oil production, the same school, no health center, no clean water facility, no road for, you know, for farmers, etc. So what is the missing point here? And when I went back, now at that level, at that position, I felt a little bit ashamed. My question was, what did we miss here? We had resources, maybe we had the appropriate program design, we have very smart people, but maybe the development was not inclusive, right? Maybe we didn't focus on the basic and very important needs of the population. This is what we need to change and to build the appropriate resilience solutions. So this is a story that could be shared across the Sahel region. How do we move from, if you allow me the word, from desert to power, in empowering people and giving them the appropriate solutions they need to build their own resilience. For someone who is sick, your resilience is to get medicines. If you are thirsty, then you need clean water to drink. If your bottom is empty, you need something to eat. This is your resilience, right? And your spirit, education to build. And this is the most important weapon you can use to change the world, as would say Nelson Mandela. Those are the different eyes of resilience I think we need to build. The second story I would like to share is when I was coming here for this Fragility Forum, I used to have some chats with my supporters, my fans, etc. And one asked me 2 questions I'm happy to share here with you guys. He said, "Are you really happy to go to this Fragility Forum?" I said, yes, why not? Because I'm going to meet very beautiful people and they are going to help us to solutions, etc. And he said, look, fragility. Are you happy that your country is referred as a fragile state? And he added, remember, a few years back, we were happy to be eligible to the heavily indebted countries. You remember that program? How can you be heavy because you are part of the heavily indebted countries? So your mission is to go there and make sure that in the coming years, you are out of the fragility, our country is out of the fragility, and out of some programs were designed for countries with problems. You see, so this gave me a sense of, you know, I feel a little bit confused by this story and this kind of question asked by the people. So, in my sense, I think the fragility in many countries is also maintained by exogenous kind of impacts. Money laundering, for example, the international financing of terrorism, how international powers can impact local politics also. This is something that could have a huge impact on local violence, on local fragilities. So unless at international level, we have a clear commitment to solve those problems who are very cross-cutting problems, we can't fix local fragility situations. So if there is a role to play by international partners, is also to focus on those international situations which have local impact on fragility. This is what I wanted to share with you. Thank you so much.
Dushka, I know that you interpret resilience through people, through vulnerable populations. Can you help us understand, in the context of Bosnia and Herzegovina, why that is the case?
First of all, because I was really struck with what Anna said, that we need to get engaged. This is just my personal opinion. It doesn't have to be a part of some important and serious analysis. But however, I believe that we are living in a world where, you know, in which actually the war actually doesn't have the winners. It was very different talking about Second World War and First World War, when it was so clear who was defeated and who was the winner. But talking about the wars in late 90s and in this era, this century, you actually cannot say who is the winner. And again, what Anna said, we need to get involved. We need to stay involved. What you would usually hear, that's not my business. That is what the countries used to say. But if you follow what was happening in the last 30 years, you would clearly see, especially with Europe. So the first wave of immigration was from former Yugoslavia countries because of the conflict. Millions of the people were immigrating. They did have a refugee status. Afterwards, there were people coming from Asia and Africa. Not only the people who are attached by the conflict, but also that was economic immigration. What do we have now? Ukraine, millions of people who are fleeing to Western European countries as well as other countries, and there is going to be another wave. It's going to come from Middle East after Israeli invasion of Palestine, actually, on Gaza, and plenty of atrocities. That is definitely going to change the world. And developed countries do have a choice, of course, to say, okay, this is not my business, and the war will spread all over. But having in mind the nature of these wars, we see that not only by migration crisis, by all the others, this affects the rest of the world. This affects developed countries. So of course there is another choice: to get and to continue being involved in solving the problems, in solving the conflict, in maintaining the peace, in strengthening the state institutions. So these are important ways. And to get back to your question, so we are forgetting at least 50% of civilization are women. And I believe that in all of our countries, there are some similar problems, there are, you know, some differences, etc. But I believe that we don't truly focus on women which role is not anymore to stay at home. We need to build capabilities, resilience for women to get involved and to spend 35 years of their life working, improving her living conditions. But for that, at least in my country, it is necessary to have better childcare and elderly care. And I cannot agree more than with you talking about one very important vulnerable group, and that is the children. Higher education means the progress for everybody else. And another one, we still do have a number of returnees in their homes after the war. And when you talk to these people, of course, the security is the major issue, but they don't speak about revenge. And they are the members of the families where somebody was killed, murdered, suffered of another kind of atrocities. So there is no revenge, there is no retaliation, there is not even the hate as the mean, as the trigger for the conflict. Those people, as very, very vulnerable group, as women, as children, they take care about their presence, and they are very much concerned for their future.
I am going to ask your opening plenary speakers to do something that is going to be incredibly difficult, but I have confidence that they will be able to do this, which is in one sentence. What wisdom would you like to impart to the forum on day one, hour one, that you have learned about fragility, conflict, or violence, again, in one sentence? Makta, I know that sentence is right at the tip of your tongue.
No. I would like to say a few words before getting to that round.
I knew there would be a few words.
I think that you kind of shortchanged me on this one.
No, it is the program.
No, but I want to say a couple of things. And
please, go ahead.
I understand what is it. You know, there is a singer that some of you like, Bob Marley, who say a hungry mob is a hungry mob. Okay? When people are hungry, they're upset, and when they're upset, they create conflict and violence. So for me, I would like also this discussion, as the Prime Minister said, leads us to some concrete actions. For me, food security is a main source. There are many sources of conflict, but I'm sure that food insecurity is a source of conflict. And we need to take some critical, aggressive, ambitious steps to address it. So, personally, in the discussion we have on the current IDA replenishment, I would love to have it as a main pillar. How many acres and thousands of acres have been irrigated in the Sahel to allow people to have access to water? How much investment has been done in the agricultural banks to help people finance investment in agriculture? How much vocational school has been built to help people to learn the jobs which are related to agriculture? These are and the list is long, but I would like us to take some targets which are under our collective reach, okay, us together, to be able to make a difference on some of the source of conflict. So food security for me is a major one, and access to water. The second one, we talk about institutions. There are many institutions, some which take time to change on others. We have those issues about resource management, mining resources. We have the EITI initiative, but is it not a time to revamp that initiative, to give more visibility? You refer to the oil situation in Chad. EITI was involved in that conversation. We are now moving in the world of digitization, where there are all these resource about battery, cobalt, etc. Are we having the right governance in place internationally to manage those resources properly so that we can avoid conflict related to mining? Second. Third, that I think which is important for me is water. Water is something which has always been a source of conflict, particularly transborder and share waters. So I would like to just for Femi, just to say that this forum is great because it's putting all these issues before us. And we are a development agency. We are not people who are working, we are not the UN. So there is some political issues that we cannot solve. But collectively here, there are some issues that we can address. And I would like us to pick 3 or 4 or 5. So you want my words for the forum. I would like us to pick 3, 4, 5 verticals that we will be able to work with on and try to have results that we can monitor for the next Fragility Forum. So these are my words.
All right. Thank you. Dushka, final thought. What did you want to share with this audience just before we wrap up our plenary? In a sentence, please.
Maktar said food, water, and what was the third? I forgot it.
Mining.
Mining. I would say just human resources. You know, nothing would be able without human resources. So, was that enough?
No, that's more than enough. Thank you. Prime Minister Mazra.
Oh, for me, let me just quote the greatest African of the 20th century, Nelson Mandela. He used to say, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to transform the world. If we educate people at country level, at continental level, at global level, then we can transform the world because we help them through their skills and through education to be able to design the solution of the world which is coming even. Maktar is referring to digitalization. You know, 10 years or 20 years back, digitalization was not so important, but today it's mandatory. So let's go from education to health, because no matter what you do, if you are not in good health, then you are going anywhere, right? And food, whoever you are, president, vice president, prime minister, IFC managing director, whatever, you need to eat, right? So unless you fix this, there is nothing you can do. Then electricity, energy, nothing is possible. No development, no industrialization is possible without energy. So I have to pick 5: education, health, food, electricity, digitalization, and let me add also water, right? So these are the priorities.
Anna,
thank you so much.
What do you want to leave our forum with for now?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said, but I want to tie it back to the theme of the Fragility Forum this year, which is adapting and innovating in a volatile world. And that means we have to learn what actually works, because it's easy to focus on all the difficult things, but we also have to, in order to remain engaged, learn what actually works. And to underpin that, I would add one word which I think is very important for people to move forward, and that's hope. Hope, because I don't want more brain drain out of Bosnia. I worked there in 97 onwards, and there was actually hope. But what we're seeing now is a lot of people are leaving because there are no jobs, and the feeling is that there is no solution to moving forward. So we need hope, and we need hope on the basis of adaptation, innovation in this difficult world that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Your next plenary will take you from fragility through to resilience in a lot more detail. Your next moderator is gifted and talented and way more knowledgeable than I am. Your next moderator is Sukaina Khan. So she will be coming up and taking the hot seat from me. But for now, Forum, this is your opening plenary panel. Thank you.